Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Online at sonicwebstudios.com for all you need. Look for a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs at below the competition way. Call today 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support at sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, over 25 podcast platforms. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with a wonderful gentleman who grew up in the western half of Washington. He grew up in the Seattle area. Now currently in New York. He's the president of Manta Pictures, and he's got some amazing movies out there that's happening right now. He put out Out of Touch, Stash, The Abandoned Trailer, Double Vision, and also Devil's Fire. And he's here to talk about a new movie called Gruesome Threesome, which is really making the waves across the internet. I mean, he's a big horror fan. We'll talk about some of the horror films and perhaps the best of all time, and just his passion of just scaring the bejesus out of people. So live, ladies and gentlemen, from the Plush Studios in New York City, ladies and gentlemen, the very next star director, and you can fill in the blank of your favorite horror director, Terry Wickham. Terry, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mike. I appreciate it.
Well, it's great to have you on board, too. So basically, you grew up in Washington State. You're in New York City, and you're president of Manta Pictures, and you've got some movies out there, which is Double Vision, Abandoned Trailer, Out of Touch, Stash, Devil's Fire, which got some awards. And you got a new movie out, Gruesome Threesome, and also won some awards as well, too. And you just have a lifelong passion of horror, which we all love to talk about. And before we get to all that, tell us how you first got started.
Well, kind of, I saw John Carpenter's Halloween back in 1978 when I was a kid. It had a big impact on me. It started my interest in filming. I didn't know at first what it was going to be. 4 years later, I saw The Thing, which was also John Carpenter. And when I walked out of the theater, I noticed at that very moment when I saw the poster that the same guy's name was on this movie that did Halloween. And it was at that very second I decided to become a film director. Didn't know anything about it. I was pretty overwhelmed at first, but I just started studying it, working towards it. And here we are 30 plus years later. And, my Devil's Five won Best Horror Film 2 years ago. This year, Double Vision won Best Thriller. I got a directing award from the Men's of the Arts of the USA last year for New York City area. So I guess things are finally working out, but I am by no means an overnight success.
It sounds like you work really hard at it. And what actually drew you to John Carpenter?
Well, I think it was just watching those movies. It was an innocent, I guess you could say kind of an innocently just sitting down and watching the movie. And what it was about his movies were there was just so much going on that affected me emotionally from his storytelling ability. To be specific, he likes to use a really wide angle look to he really gets that wide look, and he uses the foreground and background in ways to tell the story, whether it's someone in the foreground that rack focuses to the person in the back that you didn't see because they were out of focus. Things like that really impacted me. He liked to move the camera a lot, but he did it in a way that wasn't obtrusive or drew too much attention to itself. So those kind of things just really affected me as a watcher. And when I decided to become a director, I wanted to employ those same kind of stylistic touches. And I have, but, I'm trying to make it my own, but I'm definitely inspired by him.
Okay. And who are some of your other favorite directors growing up, along with your other favorite movies? And then you also got some favorite actors as well, too. And tell us more about those.
Yeah, so the other directors that really impacted me, the next one I would say is Jim Cameron. I saw The Terminator in 1984 when I was in the military. I went on base to see it on a Saturday night. I saw it. It's the only movie in my whole life I saw it for 4 consecutive nights that I paid for. So I
Wow.
saw it on Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night. And what it was is for me was it was the way he told the story with this propulsive visual way where the action was paramount to the characters in the story. They didn't just take away. A lot of times you see movies that are just straight action, no characters, no three dimension. But Cameron is smarter than that. He knows how to have it happen within the flow of the story. And I think it was that circular story where you had a guy that gets sent, a woman gets sent from a guy gets sent from the future back to the past to stop this machine that's going to kill this woman that has the baby that is the guy that sends him back. So it's this whole circle that just blew me away more than even Stan Winston's effects and all those visual effects. It was really the story. The other directors inspired me in movies in particular. Jaws had a very big impact on me. Um, ever since I saw Jaws in the drive-in with my grandma and grandpa in 1975 when it came out. They were actually laughing at the movie, but I was laughing. I was scared out of my mind, and I actually have never swam in the ocean since I saw the movie.
Really? Oh my goodness. I talked to some people from Jaws and they called it the fish movie and they thought it was gonna bomb, but then it turned up. It's like everybody just loved being scared by sharks. They actually went to see it. And now you look at this thing, it's like, it isn't a live shark. It's actually like a big metal machine just being directed. Nowadays you've got the CGI and special effects, and you don't need to build, monster machines, monster buildings, and everything else. And I talked to a couple of people and they said that if they did it again, they'd do it in CGI. So, I mean, I watched Jaws myself too, and I looked at it, it's just like pretty fishy. I have to say that. So,
Well, you know what it was for me about the movie was not so much the shark itself, but it was really everything leading up to seeing it. So it was the suspense, and that's the thing that attracts me the most. And the thing I like to do the most as a director is create suspense. Suspense could be that girl that you like. Is she going to say yes when he asks her out? When I go for that test at the doctor's office, do I have corona? Is Michael Myers behind that bush? So suspense is so many different things. Am I going to get that raise for my job? So I really like to create that. And what Spielberg did so great in Jaws was to make you think the shark was there even when you didn't see it.
so it's more like a thing of fear that is false evidence appearing real. So it looks like, in a sense, it's there. In a sense, it's not. And now is that the same formula that you use in all your movies as well, too, applying to Spielberg and John Carpenter and Jim Cameron?
Yeah, yeah. And I would even say if you take it deeper than that at the beginning level, it's really the Hitchcock way. Hitchcock said suspense is letting the audience know about something ahead of time and then make them wait for it to happen. So, like if you show the shark attack this girl in the first scene of the movie, every time someone goes in the water after that, you're thinking they're going to get possibly attacked by the shark. So like in my movies, I probably have something happen very early in the story that tells you something about a place or a person or a situation so that when the actors and the characters go into that place, now you're worrying about it. It may not be something the characters are aware of, but the audience is. And that's something I definitely employ without question.
How about some of your favorite non-horror film directors? Who are some of your favorite that are in non-horror?
Well, one of the ones that comes to my mind really quickly is there's a director from Germany named Tom Twyker who did Run Lola Run, Princess and the Warrior. Um, the International was kind of a bigger movie he did. He's amazing. We're similar age, and not that that matters as far as his films, but I love the way he takes time and space, and he'll tell the story where he kind of condenses it and speeds it up, and usually has many different characters that end up crossing paths, and the way he does that is brilliant. And I try to do that myself, especially in my latest movie, Double Vision. I had all these different characters that cross paths, and you never know why or how that's going to happen, but it does. And I think I picked that up from Twyker. I also like Michael Mann. Michael Mann's one of my three favorite directors. and he's not really a horror film director. The only horror film he's ever made was The Keep, which was not successful back in '83. But whether it be Miami Vice, Collateral, Heat, The Insider, Last of the Mohicans, I love the way Michael Madden works with actors, and visually, he's very unpredictable as a director. I don't like when you can anticipate a director's shots. I want to be surprised, and he does that to me all the time.
It sounds like it too. And of course, I ask these, horror fans a question. What are your thoughts on Stephen King?
I believe it or not, I've never read a lot of his books, because I actually did something I guess about 25 years ago. I made a decision, and I'll get back to answer the question. I made a decision not to read fiction because since I make fiction and I write fiction, if I just read fiction and write fiction and make fiction, then my life is basically phony. And I felt like I needed to get some sort of reality into it. So, like 24 years ago, I actually made a hard decision. I'm not going to read fiction books. I'm going to only read nonfiction. So, whether it's a tornado, shark attacks, the World Trade Center, the tsunami to hit India, I read books like that versus movie, like fantasy books and stuff. So, I've read a few of his books. Obviously, I've seen a lot of the movies based on his work. I definitely like the stuff he's done. I don't think he's a very good director if you look at Maximum Overdrive, but
It makes you think of what was it, Michael Bay or something, the Explosion King.
yeah, I guess Stephen King tried it once and he saw he wasn't very good at it, so he left it to the guys who actually know how to direct. So whether it be what Kubrick did with The Shining, Carpenter did with Christine, Rob Reiner with Stand By Me, or you could say, God knows, The Shawshank Redemption or The Mist with Frank Darabont. Those are all based on Stephen King stories, and I think they've done a wonderful job with his work.
And what would you say your favorite Stephen King movie is?
I think that's a very tough answer. I don't know if I could give one, but I could probably give my top five. I think that King had a really great relationship with George Romero, and I like the way they made Creepshow. And in fact, King was in it as an actor in the episode with Jody Verrill. I thought it was great. I'd put Creepshow in my top five. I'd also put The Shining. I thought that was really scary, and visually it was a masterpiece. I think that Carpenter's Christine is very underrated. I think the acting's top flight, and John was just coming off The Thing, and between Starman and The Thing, that point in his life he was making great movies, and Christine I think was one of them. And I think the other one I'd have to say would have to be The Shawshank Redemption, though it's not a horror film, and I guess you would also say The Mist. I'm a huge fan of The Mist.
That is amazing, and we'll get to your other movies as well too. To your influences with Out of Touch, Stash, the Abandoned Trailer, and more. But first, listen to the Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960, or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, and over 25 podcast platforms. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with the president of Manta Ray Pictures, Terry Wickham, here on the Mike Wagner Show, and talked about his major influences, his movies, favorite directors, actors, and more. And we're going to get to some of his films he's done. First was Out of Touch, then later was Stash, Abandoned Trailer, Double Vision, Devil's Fire, and talk about his latest movie, Gruesome Threesome. But first, let's talk about you starting up Manta Ray Pictures, and tell us more about the company and what inspired you to start Manta Ray, and how'd you come up with the name for the title of the company?
Well, actually, I created the name Manta Ray. I wanted something that could be scary visually, but was actually also nice. I wanted that weight on two different sides, so they gave me versatility in terms of, instead of calling my company Zombie Massacre Company, that kind of
Killer! or slash ink or something.
Yeah, so the manta ray looks scary, but it actually is harmless. So that's kind of what I was hoping for, something like that. And believe it or not, this may sound silly to you. When I was researching the name, I wanted something that was somehow subliminally correlated with success. And I studied the alphabet. And when I looked at the letter M, I thought that that was a good letter, whether it was Metallica, Madonna, money. You know, you look at the word mountain, you know, it's got monster, it's got all these things that are powerful and strong and successful. So I kind of went for that kind of correlation to go to with that letter.
Huh. I did not know about that. M being the most powerful letter in the alphabet. I have to thank my mom and dad for that, naming me Mike. It's like, thank you. Something that's something that's like, you know, you didn't even think about. It's like, that is a very interesting point. I love that. and tell us more about Manta Ray Pictures. What have you guys done? How long have you been in business? And basically, what are some of the other projects you've worked on as well, besides the movies I've mentioned, Out of Touch, Stash, Landlord, and Abandoned Trailer, and more?
Yeah, so Manta Ray Pictures LLC was created in 1998. It's a company that represents everything I do, whether it be films. I, for many years, still am a journalist, so I would write reviews on books, movies, CDs, concerts, etc. I've written for a lot of other places as well, like fearsmag.com, Guitar 2001 Mag, Shockwave Magazine, etc. So I just wanted something that kind of I could put everything under one umbrella, and that is ended up being Manta Ray. And all the films I've done since '98 have been under that same company.
And did you say you were a journalist at one point?
You know, I would say obviously I still am. Um, I've been reviewing movies and books since I was in high school.
Oh,
When
wow.
I was in Yeah, when I was in high school, I created my own magazine, or you might want to call it a fanzine,
Mm-hmm.
called Carnage, which of course was about gore movies and scary movies. And I think a lot of my student fellow classmates probably thought I was a little crazy because I'd be talking about Exploding Head and Maniac or Dawn of the Dead, for Jason Voorhees and Friday 13th. Um, so I've been writing reviews for over 30 years. I've done thousands and thousands of reviews. But about 6 years ago, a friend of mine said to me, "Are you a journalist or are you a filmmaker? I think you should focus on one." So I purposely made a decision about 6 years ago to focus more on filmmaking. And in that time, I've done more work in the last 6 years than the 20 years before that.
Wow, that is something. And I was gonna ask that do you also provide journalist reviews on your Manta Ray Pictures, or is that on a separate website? Where can we find your reviews at?
Yeah, it's going to be at wordpress.mantaraypictures.com. You could just go to my website. There's a lot of reviews. There's not a lot of reviews lately because of making that decision to focus on filmmaking. But if I still really want to review something, I can. I recently reviewed uh, a movie about horror films that were supposedly cursed. It's called Cursed Films. And actually, I'm going to be reviewing John Petrucci's new guitar solo instrumental album. So I
Oh, wow.
still do it, not as much, but it's because I'm devoted my time really much more to filmmaking, and that's really the most important thing in my life.
It sounds like it too. You're doing a really good job of it. Let's talk about your films you've had under Manta Ray Pictures: Out of Touch, Stash, Abandoned Trailer, Double Vision, Devil's Fire, and Gruesome Threesome. Tell us about the films you have done so far.
Yeah, so I started making movies. My first feature film was actually back in 1990. It was a drama, was not a horror film. It was called Out of Touch, and it was a big movie. It was a 164-page script, which is really unfilmable. You're not supposed to go over 120, but don't tell me to. I didn't know that then. So, 24-year-old filmmaker in 1990. I tackled that thing with abandon. It took about a year. We shot it on, weekends and some weekdays over the course of a year. It was 45 shooting days, which is quite a few days for a feature film. We had a lot of actors, And I learned a lot. I learned not to make a film that long. The movie ended up being 2 hours and 12 minutes.
Wow.
Um, and it was a drama. So I had a lot of fun, and I cast a lot of the actors that I was going to acting school with from New York City at HB Studios. And then over the course of the year since that, I did a horror film called Evil Streets, which was a feature film back in 1997, 98. Actually, two of the movies that are part of Gruesome Threesome were exported by me to this new film because I had a friend about 4 years ago who said, those old movies that you made back in the late 90s, can people still see them? And I said, no, because we had released it on VHS and we actually sold out, and we decided not to press more copies. And it never on DVD, it was never on streaming. So my friend said, you really should take those old movies, put it with one of your other new, older movies, and write a new wraparound, and you have a feature film. So
Huh.
that's kind of how Gruesome Threesome came to be. So it was really my friend inspired me, a guy named James Balsamo, a director out in LA. Um, and those four movies that make up Gruesome Threesome, I wrote the one with Serena Lee called Stock, and The Downfall of Johnny Garrett was written by Michael Knight, and I helped adapt his story into screenplay form. And then Hair of the Dog and the wraparound that holds it all together, that was written by Timothy David Clark.
Wow, that is amazing. So Gruesome Threesome was based on, what was it, Out of Touch and Stash? And what were the other films that you just simply took pieces of or did adaptations? What were they based on again?
Yeah, so Out of Touch was a separate animal altogether, and that's not part of Gruesome Threesome. But what Gruesome Threesome is two of the movies from Evil Streets, The Downfall of Johnny Garrett and Stock, combining them with Hair of the Dog, which came in 2003, and then a new wraparound that we shot about 3 years ago.
Wow, that's amazing. We'll talk more about Gruesome Threesome in just a minute. But first, listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking at a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at facebook.com/the Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, over 25 podcast platforms. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with film director Terry Wickham, president of Manta Ray Pictures, here on the Mike Wagner Show, talking about some of his previous works he's done, and also talking more about Gruesome Threesome, starring Shanice Renee, John Logan, Linda Collins, Serena Lee, and coming out October 2nd as well. And, tell us about those wonderful actors and actresses you've worked with, and maybe a bit more about Gruesome Threesome.
Yeah, so Gruesome Threesome, I really am excited that the world out there, especially the younger generations who have never got a chance to see those movies that are actually over 2 decades old, and then Hair of the Dog's about 17 years old. I'm really excited they're going to see them. I think what's great for the potential audience out there is, as a horror film, because it's an anthology, it actually is directed by all the same director. Most anthologies, you don't see that. Creepshow is one that was just George Romero, and that's kind of what I think we kind of patterned it a little bit after. But again, it was never made to be together. We just assembled them later. But as far as those actors and stuff, really, really excited the audience is going to be able to see what they did. Obviously, I don't make these movies alone. You have, crew of people that work behind the scenes, whether they be cinematographers, music composers, editors, and then your actors. So Hair of the Dog was a great experience for me. One of my favorite of my career so far. Not only did Tim start out with a really strong script, it was very different than anything I'd ever done before that. And it came 6 years after I'd done Stock, which was, Downfall of Johnny Garrett Stock. So I kind of learned a lot as a director in those 6 years. But Tim was telling something. It was kind of like almost like a thriller. It was really to me more of a thriller, even though it had horror film aspects to it. So we had some really good actors like Chris Weir, John Dylan Howard, uh, Doris Daney played our serial killer, and even Melanie Collins, who was the nice neighbor next to the character, the Chris Weir character, which was Alex. So I like that movie because I think you're going to be surprised. It's funny, it's a little bit sexy, and it's also scary.
It sounds amazing too. Where can we find Gruesome Threesome at?
Yes. So Gruesome Threesome, I've decided to release it. My company is going to release it on Vimeo, and it's going to be on Vimeo streaming. You can either buy the movie for like $13, or you can just stream it for $7. Either way, you're going to get 2 free documentaries with the film. I kind of thought that was cool for if I was a audience member, I would want to see how they made the film and kind of go behind the scenes.
Mhm.
So anybody that buys it, purchases or rents it, they're going to be able to get those 2 movies. If you just rent it, you'll get it for 48 hours. So you can watch the movie one night and the documentaries the next. If you buy it, obviously they're yours. One documentary, 79 minutes long. It gets really detailed about working with Serena Lee, who, as you may know, is a big boob star. She was in Score magazine. She worked with Playboy's voluptuous vixens, and she was really talented. Besides her body, she was so smart, and she was such a nice person. And she came up from Jacksonville, Florida, to work on the movie with me. She came up when we stole. She always drew the biggest audience for obvious reasons, and I think the other thing people are going to like about seeing Gruesome Threesome is one movie's supernatural, one movie is a slasher, one is a thriller, and the other one's kind of a combination. So you're going to kind of get lots of different kinds of stuff to eat as a horror film fan.
It sounds like a buffet, I have to say. That I'm so looking forward to it. Gruesome Threesome coming out very soon. You heard it first on the Mike Wagner Show. And before we get to your top 10 best horror films of all time, we saw on your website you won a best thriller film in what was it, Double Vision? And tell us more about that. If you got some other words, you can go ahead and throw it out as well.
Yeah, and by the way, I want to mention Sean McGinn on Gruesome Hair of the Dog. Sean McGinn was my DP editor. He worked so much of that movie is a tribute to him because he did so much work on that film by himself as a color correction. He shot it, he edited it. I got to give him props because without his help, it would not have been as good. But to go into my more recent work, we have a movie called Devil's Five, which is going to be released by a major Hollywood distributor named Random Media. It's going to be on iTunes and everything like that, starting after the beginning of the new year. It's also an anthology, and there's 5 movies about the devil, and I directed 3 of the 5. So one of the films is called The Devil's Five Wraparound, or just called The Devil's Five, but it's really the film that holds the whole feature together. It has Ralph Sheepers, the lead singer from Primal Fear. We flew him over for Germany to play the lead role. He was amazing. Such a great, hardworking guy and a good actor. And Diana Norris plays his wife in the film, and she's this Latin, beautiful actress that's I've worked with actually, a couple times now. And I did a movie called Abandon, which was also part of Devil's Five, which was a lot of fun for me. That was a found footage mythology. So most of the movies had to adhere to the found footage technique, whether it be a video camera, a cell phone, a security camera. So when I did Abandon, I kind of felt like breaking the rule of found footage. I kind of shot a little more traditional. And it was interesting when people review it, they always single that out as probably the best looking out of the 5. And that's probably because I purposely made it look like a real movie.
Amazing. Maybe think of that one movie where it looked like it came from what was it? One of those old Super 8s. I can't think of the name of it. It was just like bouncing all over. I can't think of the name right now. It was like, what was that name of that movie? Oh my gosh. What's that?
Blair Witch Project?
Yes, that's it. The Blair Witch. Okay, I usually come up with names, but for some reason I didn't have enough coffee, and I was trying to think what it was. So it made me think of that. And where can we find your movies at?
Yeah, so Devil's Five is going to be coming out by Random Media. I'm not sure exactly all the places they're going to put it, but they told us it's going to be everywhere. Probably also end up being on DVD and Blu-ray as well. But that'll be after New Year. Go to Manta Ray Pictures. Go to Facebook page for Devil's Five, or go to my Instagram. Any one of those places, you'll find out when it comes out. And then the other movie that came out this year, it's not released yet, but I won Best Thriller Film, was called Double Vision. Now, actually, that movie has a kind of a second title to it. It's actually called Terry R. Wickham's Double Vision. And the reason I did that was because I wrote it, I directed it, and I produced it. Now, I had three other producers, four other producers working with me who are very important: John Marola, B.T. Barron, David Melanson, and our executive producer, Ray Dimmick. But the reason why I call it Terry R. Wickham's Double Vision is because, unlike these anthologies that had different directors, different writers, this came all out of my head, and it's really me visually. So I wanted to do a Hitchcockian thriller. It was more like Basic Instinct or Body Double or Vertigo, and that's the way this movie is. Still a little scary, definitely suspenseful, but I want to be different than Devil's Five and Gruesome Threesome.
That sounds amazing. We're looking forward to all that. And before we get to some of your plans for 2021 and beyond, what are your top 10 best horror films of all time, in your opinion, since we have a few minutes left?
Ooh, okay, I carry that with a great deal of responsibility. So off the top of my head, and people could go to my website and actually see all these listed. I have like 60 films I list. I break it down by slasher, gore film, etc. But I'd say if I was go off the top of my head, horror films, Halloween, John Carpenter's Halloween, John Carpenter's The Thing, Jaws, which I do consider a horror film, The Mist. I would say also, I'm going to say The Exorcist. I'm going to say Dawn of the Dead, George Romero's Dawn of the Dead. I'm also going to say, I might put Jeepers Creepers in there. I love Jeepers Creepers. I thought that Victor Salva did an amazing job on it. And if I was to add one more, um, I might throw in The Evil Dead. I just love The Evil Dead. It was so much fun, the original. Of course, Sam Raimi.
It sounds like you had a lot of fun. I could tell you're passionate about Jeepers Creepers by the shirt you're wearing. It just made me think of it. You kind of threw that out there. There you go. Show it to the worldwide audience. Jeepers Creepers. You're so proud. I think that's what maybe we can call your next film, Jeepers Creepers and something Peepers or something like that. Hey, you know what? Speaking of upcoming projects, and what can we expect from you in 2021 and beyond?
You know, it took a long time for me after Double Vision to think about what I wanted to do next, because I was actually working on Devil's Five, Gruesome Threesome, and Double Vision consecutively. So that took a lot out of me. So I took a couple-month break. But after a lot of consideration, I had a couple of options. A couple other directors wanted me to work with them on another anthology. I decided that the film I really want to make next is my baby. It's the one out of all the films I've ever made or could make that I want to make the most. It's a supernatural film. It's called Anomaly. It's I want it to be one of the scariest films ever made. It's not funny. It's not a thriller. It's a balls out scary horror film with ghosts in a way that you will not be laughing.
And what is Anomaly all about, very briefly?
It's about a paranormal research team that goes to Sandy Hook, New Jersey to find out if it's haunted. And when they go there in the first 15 minutes, they disappear because of what's there. One of the guys actually gets away and ends up a female cop has to help him. When she does, it leads her to investigating the location where they were at. And that leads to the three women who were connected with these men. And the rest of the movie is once they go back to that place, they individually become terrorized by the ghosts, by the unseen force. And together they try to overcome it, which is almost impossible.
And when can we expect Anomaly yet?
Well, I have to raise the money for it. I have a couple of producers and potential opportunities with that right now that I'm talking to who are considering the film. Believe it or not, I've actually done, I had my script editor, David Melanson. do a rewrite of a few things, and he had some incredible things to the script. So actually tonight I'm going to try to finish that and get it to a producer who's considered with some investors. But if there's anybody out there that might want to get involved, call me, contact me. I want to do it on a bigger level than I've ever done, and because it has some underwater photography, it's got all kinds of stuff that's a little more higher level budget than what I've done already. And as far as the other things, I have a friend in the film in the TV industry who really wants to work together with me on his show. That's something I hope happen after the pandemic clears up. And I also have a tribute each year for filmmakers that are masters who I admire. I get together with a bunch of directors and we do what's called a Masters Roundtable tribute. This is our fourth year in a row. You can look at my website. You'll see it on the top left over on the left side. We did George Romero and Toby Hooper the first year, John Carpenter the second year, and last year Wes Craven. Everyone can get ready because we're going to do David Cronenberg and the late Stuart Gordon, who passed away this year. And that's going to be on video. So it'll be on YouTube and everything.
That is amazing. We're looking forward to some great stuff from you in 2021. Once again, film director and president of Manta Ray Pictures, Terry Wickham here on the Mike Wagner Show. A very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. And before we go, tell us who's been the biggest influence in your career?
Undoubtedly John Carpenter. I think also Jim Cameron and Michael Mann. Those are the three filmmakers. As far as outside of that, I'm a big sports guy. So whether it be some of the players on the Raiders like Tim Brown, Fred Biletnikoff, if you go to baseball, I'm a big Red Sox fan, so I like Jim Rice.
Wow.
David Ortiz, who was one of the best performers in postseason history on the Red Sox. And then also my father who passed away last year. He's a drag racing fanatic. So I grew up around funny cars and Top Fuel dragsters. So I'm really big into drag racing. So I like Ed Diaz McCullough, who used to race in funny cars. Those are guys who inspired me as well. So that's kind of my heroes.
Wow. Have you thought about maybe doing a film or a horror film on funny cars or football players? Lyle Alzado comes to mind. The great Lyle Alzado. He was just a character where he went. I loved it.
Yeah, and the other Raider that was kind of crazy like him was John Matusek. Do you remember him?
Oh my gosh. I'm trying to think. Was he in that film Caveman with Ringo Starr and Barbara Bach? It's like he was in one of the films. Oh my goodness. I know it's not a horror film, but it does look scary the way they go zug zug. It's like they spoke no English. What are they talking? What caveman language? What a total of 20, 30 words throughout the film.
He also was in the Goonies.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, he must have been one hell of an actor.
Yeah, he was the sloth guy that kind of was deformed. But yeah, absolutely. I would love to combine my interest in both of those. And when I was doing my research on Cronenberg, David Cronenberg, just to go back and rewatch his films and try to see anything I hadn't seen, he actually made Fast Company. And at the end of that movie, he has a nitro funny car chase down an airplane to knock it out of the sky that John Saxon's driving, who just died recently. Is that crazy or what?
Oh my gosh, it does sound crazy. And I can think of another horror film as well too, or slasher, Kill the Quarterback.
Absolutely. Yeah, it'd be great to work with one of those athletes in a movie. I'd love to do that.
And which athletes who would you like to work with or be in the film? Maybe mention Tom Brady. Kidding.
I think that one of the producers I'm talking to, Diana Norris, she's a huge Patriots fan. She probably wouldn't mind working with him.
That would be surprising. I kind of go Brett Favre myself. If somebody tried to get him, we'll probably get three of his buddies to get that guy. So, just have quarterbacks in there. So we'll talk more about that. And Terry, just want to say you've been absolutely fantastic. Looking forward to having him soon. Once again, Terry Wickham, film director and president of Manta Ray Pictures on the Mike Wagner Show. Absolutely fantastic. Looking forward to having him again soon. Once again, tell us about your upcoming projects. What's your website? How do people contact you? Where can people purchase or check out your movies?
Yeah, so I guess the most obvious place is go to wordpress.mantaraypictures.com. That's my website. Everything's there. I have things at the top so you don't have to go search for how to buy Gruesome Threesome. I've basically put it at the very top. You You can watch trailers, etc., for all these movies. You can see my favorite films of all time. You can read my reviews. Anything that I'm doing will be there. Connection to all social media. As far as social media, there's Double Vision has its own page on Facebook. You can also look up Devil's Five on Facebook. You can also look up Gruesome Threesome on Facebook. I'm on Twitter as Manta Race 16. That's my Twitter handle. And on Instagram, it's Manta Pics, which of course abbreviation for Manta Ray Pictures. That's MANTAPICS. But the best place is go mantaraypictures.com.
That is fantastic. Once again, Terry, a big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. Looking forward to having him soon. Do us a favor, keep us up to date. Love you back on in 2021 and beyond. You've been absolutely great and looking forward to what you have.
Thank you guys so much. It was a pleasure.